So guys, let's talk about mothers and daughters. If you look at the panels that are at this Commission for Status of Women, I think, if I'm not mistaken, this is the only time we're talking about mothers and daughters. That needs to be changed, because the mother-daughter relationship is at the heart and at the seat of women's power. Briefly, let me introduce myself. So I'm a mother-daughter therapist. I have an international private practice where I work with mothers and daughters individually and as couples from around the world. I'm an author of 2 books. Well, the second one's coming out in May. Founder of Mother-Daughter Coaching International. I blog on Huffington Post on women's issues and the mother-daughter relationship. And I'm an adjunct lecturer at the University of New Hampshire, where I teach the Women in Leadership course. So there are 2 things I'd like to talk to you about today. Firstly, I'd like to share with you my journey and how I got to work with mothers and daughters and how it became, as you talk about, my life's calling, my passion. And secondly, I'd like to share 2 things that I've learned over the years about understanding the mother-daughter relationship. So where did it all begin for me? Obviously with my mom. That's my mom, and that's me at 16. I, sadly, like with too many mothers and daughters, our relationship started getting contentious when I was about 13, 14. And when I was 16, I had this epiphany. It was a normal day, and I was just like home from having lunch at home, back to school. I write about this in my upcoming book. And I suddenly realized that I really needed to understand my mum. I had to understand why she struggled to listen to me and why she struggled to see me as a person in my own right. So then life continued, and my next epiphany happened with my daughter Olivia. When I was 26 years old, Olivia was born. And when the nurse told me that I had a daughter, I had this bizarre experience where literally on the wall opposite my bed, I saw this it was like a movie of the violence that the women in my family had experienced, the emotional silencing, the emotional neglect that they'd experienced, how they'd sacrificed far too much of their lives, and how they'd never got to be who they wanted to be. And I saw all this like a movie on the wall, and I realized in that moment that if I did not, and I write about this in the song, get my shit straight, so to speak, about what I had inherited from my mum, the sort of emotional disempowerment I'd inherited from my mum and my grandmother. And if I didn't get to understand what had gone wrong between my mother and I, my daughter Olivia and I would not have a good relationship. So with that, the mission started. And I had to discover what harms and heals the mother-daughter relationship. And what started as a personal quest became so much larger, where I wanted to work with mothers and daughters. And that is when the magic happened. So the first thing that I discovered was that women's multi-generational experience with sexism, and particularly emotional silencing and emotional neglect, is the underlying cause of mother-daughter conflict. Let me explain. In my training, I was taught, not that there really was a course on how to work with mothers and daughters, and there still isn't, which is something I'm changing. But I was taught to see the mother-daughter relationship as self-contained diet. It is absolutely not. What happens between my mother and I, what happens between you and your mum, or you and your daughter, is a reflection of how women are treated in your family, and within society, and within your culture. So if women are heard or silenced, if women are emotionally supported or emotionally neglected, those dynamics impact how mothers and daughters behave. So the one thing that I found, if women are not heard, mothers and daughters end up fighting over who gets to be heard. If women are emotionally neglected, mothers and daughters end up fighting over who gets to be supported. Restrictive gender roles that limit women's lives and limit women's freedom and silence women's voices. If women live in those environments, mothers and daughters end up fighting over their lack of freedom, or their need for freedom gets played out between mothers and daughters. So we really need to see what goes on between mothers or daughters within such a much larger cultural context, so that we stop blaming ourselves and each other for the conflict that we're experiencing. And then there's the cultural female service. This is a term that I've created because my clients needed to have a sort of umbrella term that explained all the ways that women are expected to sacrifice themselves, to neglect themselves, to be listeners but not to be listened to give but not to receive. And that, along with what I just said, is at the heart of mother-daughter conflict. So the next thing that happened was I created mother-daughter history mapping. I was taught to draw clients' family trees or genograms, as they're called within my profession. And this is a powerful exercise that really you get to see what's been going on in a multi-generational family. But early on as a therapist, I got so frustrated when I was doing my clients' family trees, because I felt that the women's voice, the unique female voice, and the unique female experience just wasn't coming through. The men's experience and the men's, though incredibly valid, if I'm working with a woman, I want to know what it was like for her. I want to know what it was like for her mother and her grandmother, and it really wasn't coming through. So then Isabella turned up. This is an example of her mother-daughter history map. Isabella's a made-up name, but she was a real person many years ago that I saw. She was supposed to see me because her father had ordered her that I had to cure her of her rebellious nature. Not following father's rules was a crime in her family, and I was supposed to fix that. Well, he picked the wrong therapist for that, or maybe the right one. But anyway, he got it. He didn't see. He clearly didn't see me clearly at the start. So you can imagine that Isabella wasn't exactly keen to talk to me. So eventually, after a couple of sessions of practically complete silence, I decided, so I said, right, let's just draw your family tree. She said, great. And all she could talk about was her dad, the uncle who was violent, who had been hospitalised actually in a psychiatric hospital a number of times because of his violence. And then I got so frustrated. I said, what about your mom? What about your grandmother? She said, oh, there's nothing to say about them. Their lives are boring. And with that, I just thought, right, something snapped inside of me, and I thought, right, I've got to redo the rules here. So in a split second, I just threw away the rules, and Isabella and I created the way of doing mother-daughter history mapping that I do today. And the beauty of this exercise is that you really get to see generational patterns. And when you, like for example, in hers, the generational patterns of violence, and then also the generational pattern of eating disorders in her family, which is directly linked to women not being heard, not being emotionally supported, so the one thing they can control is whether they eat or not. It can show patterns of depression, anxiety, and other cultural practices, and it shows how it harms women. Because not only do we tell the stories here, we draw out the emotional reality of what it means to be female in this multi-generational family. And then how to change it. So this is an exercise of generational change. I write about Bella in my upcoming book, Mother-Daughter Puzzle, which is coming out in May. It's been a 7-year pregnancy. It's been a long time. In it, I write about everything that I've learned about the mother-daughter relationship over the last 20, 25 years that I've worked with moms and daughters. And my first book, The Silent Female Scream, I write about how women can claim their voice and raise their entitlement to be heard, because that is a generational pattern that we're at the cusp of changing. So in the mother-daughter puzzle, this is one of the things I write. Imagine for a moment if the resentment women feel about the limitations they've had to live with was given a voice. I don't think we know the half of what would come bursting forth from the depth of women's hearts. Imagine the power these voices would have. The power they have to stop women from feeling guilty about the sexist and abusive ways they've been treated. When women tell their stories, and we hear the secrets they carry about how men have mistreated them, how religions have blamed and shamed them, and how patriarchy has controlled women's bodies, autonomy and rights, our world is changed forever. So where I am today, a year and a half ago I had another epiphany. Somebody got incredibly ill, and in the hospital I realised that how absolute tragedy it would be if I didn't get to pass on everything that I'd learned over the last 20 years. In fact, all those thousands of clients' voices I think would be lost. So through Mother-Daughter Coaching International, I teach women, and men, but at the moment they're all women. I teach people who work with women and girls on how to empower the mother-daughter relationship and how to emotionally empower women, because they actually work the same. Empower a mother and daughter, and you emotionally empower them. And how to facilitate generational change in women's multi-generational family. I also facilitate women's power circles, and later on this year on my website I will have an online course that teaches women how to run their own women's power circle. And the power of women's power circles is to women together to support each other, to speak, to raise their entitlement to be heard, and to facilitate the generational change that's required in their families. So, this is my contact details. As you can see, I absolutely love talking about this subject and can talk about it forever. So, if you would like to contact me to talk to your organisation, I would love to. I have copies of the PowerPoint available, so let me hand those out. And also, I want to give away 3 copies of my book, The Silent Female Scream.